Some of you will know this if you lived in the Paleolithic era, as Henry and I did.
Story straight out of a billionaire's playbook. A giant super yacht glides across the Mediterranean, champagne flutes glinting in the golden sunlight. And there it is, the richest man in the world, bowing beside the woman he's chosen to share his vast fortune with. Cameras are passionately capturing every moment. Newspapers hail them as the golden couple of the age. Jeff Bezos and Lauren Sanchez, the couple who can buy everything, except, as everyone soon learns, loyalty. It starts as a whisper, then it becomes a rumor, a haunting news story that spreads like wildfire among the upper class. Someone sees something, a detail that doesn't fit the picture Bezos and Sanchez have painted, and then the photos appear. At first, they were blurry, as if they were never meant to see the light. But the closer you look, the clearer they become. Lauren Sanchez, alone on the deck of a yacht, smiles at another man. Not just smiles, but leans in, letting his hand rest on hers. Body language that can't be faked. In the world of millionaires, privacy is a fortress. But this time, the walls aren't just cracked, they've collapsed. The photos have drifted into an unwanted inbox. From there, they've traveled down a web of gossip and finally landed in Jeff Bezos' lap. In his own home, a man who has faced everything from global trade rivals to rocket launches is now confronted with evidence that his marriage may be over. The Temminck'll be worse. The ink on the marriage certificate was not yet dry, and the memories of the wedding were still fresh. But there's one undeniable truth. Something was terribly wrong behind the scenes. And if you thought Jeff Bezos, who built Amazon from scratch into a global empire, would let it all slide, you'd be wrong. Because what happened next turned a low-key betrayal into a global drama. This is the detailed story of how Lauren Sanchez's private yacht photos exploded into a global controversy. A blow to the heart of the world's richest man, sparking whispers of revenge and thrusting the couple into a spotlight no amount of money could shield. It all started one day on the ocean and a man who wasn't Jeff Bezos. Before there were rumors, photos, or the word betrayal, their fairy tale existed. Jeff Bezos and Lauren Sanchez were more than just lovers. They were the embodiment of an empire in motion. Their relationship was celebrated on glossy magazine covers and corporate news sites as an alliance between two powerful figures ready to dominate boardrooms and red carpets. Bezos, the founder of one of the most revolutionary companies in history, was far from a given. The man who could spend $500 million on a super yacht without blinking an eye. The man who launched rockets into space for fun. And his name synonymous with money and power. And Sanchez, a former TV host turned helicopter pilot, possessed the charisma that made her shine in Hollywood and stand out at lavish soirees for the super rich. They are drawn to each other like two poles of magnetism. Every public appearance reinforces their image as an untouchable power couple. They meet stars at prestigious film festivals, attend lavish charity events, and smile for the cameras as if the world is just a passing breeze. Even those who doubt the speed of their relationship cannot deny. Bezos and Sanchez know how to show perfect unity. Behind closed doors, their reality was far less glamorous than the public eye. Close friends of the couple have hinted at small, but telling conflicts. The work and responsibilities of Bezos' empire have kept him away from home for long stretches. Meanwhile, Lauren Sanchez, a fiercely independent woman, has remained in her own orbit. She attends parties, flies helicopters, maintains a social circle that doesn't always fit into her husband's world. That independence is in part what once fascinated Bezos, but it also created a void. And that void, in retrospect, was probably large enough for something or someone to quietly move in. Yet, at this point in the story, there are no public signs of a rift. To the world, they remain the epitome of modern romance. Glamorous, ambitious, and unstoppable. For Bezos, who has been through a high-profile divorce, this is more than just a relationship. It's a statement that he has found not just love, but a companion who can stand by him in the harshest, brightest light. So, what's coming next isn't just a wound. It's an explosion. Because when a relationship is built on public image and shared ambition, a rift is never just personal. It's global. It's a day like any other in the life of a billionaire's wife. The sun glinted off the turquoise sea, a luxury yacht anchored far enough from shore to ensure privacy. With a guest list as ritzy as a Fortune 500 private meeting, Lauren Sanchez believed this would be the perfect escape. Little did she know, the trip would spark a scandal that would quietly explode. The yacht was like a floating palace with a top deck that was perfect in every detail. The crew was trained to anticipate every need, from the chilled champagne to the linens. None of them expected cameras to be lurking. The passengers walked freely, enjoying the sunshine and the rare air of confidence that no one was watching. Among the few guests was a man who seemed like the perfect fit. Rich enough to be there, attractive enough to mingle, and familiar enough with Lauren to strike up a long conversation. But what caught her attention that day wasn't the words. Lauren leaned in, giggling. The man's hand gently stroked her arm longer than a friend should. It was the kind of subtle magnetic interaction that under other circumstances might have been considered harmless. But here, under the silent but piercing gaze of a small group of observers, it took on a different meaning. A few crew members took notice. They were trained to keep quiet. But in a world where loyalty could be bought and sold as easily as fine wine, no secret was truly safe. One crewman later recalled an inappropriate intimacy happening right before his eyes. Another remarked, Lauren seemed to have forgotten that eyes were watching her. Whispers began to spread before the yacht had even made it back to port, and by the time the anchor was dropped, the gossip had followed the ship all the way to shore. No one expected that among the guests and crew there was a man quietly carrying a phone. The angle wasn't perfect. The focus was a little blurry, but it was enough to freeze the moment forever. The frames told a story that no one was supposed to know. Lauren, tanned, smiling, leaned across the private table toward a man who wasn't her husband. Her hand was in his, and they both chuckled as if sharing a secret. An intimate moment under the canopy of the upper deck. Out of context, it might have been overlooked. But in the world of millionaires, perception is money. And these photos, though blurry, were enough to destroy what Bezos and Sanchez had worked so hard to sell the public. The illusion of unbreakable unity. The rumors quickly grew as they left the yacht, followed the story ashore, and then headed into the city. As the rumor reached the ears of the elite, it turned from a trivial gossip story into a sharp accusation. And somewhere along the way, one thing became certain. This story would find its way to Jeff Bezos. The first photos didn't make the front pages of the tabloids. They didn't even float around the internet. Instead, they arrived quietly in a private message from one billionaire insider to another and then passed around to someone close enough to Jeff Bezos to know this was something he couldn't ignore. And when the image definitely flashed across his phone screen, it was simple yet powerful. Lauren in a bikini leaning toward a man on the deck of a yacht. But what made the photo so dangerous was the context. Bezos knew the date, knew the location. And he wasn't there. The next photos came, each more revealing than the last. A hand on his shoulder, a glance across the table, a moment of laughter, their faces inches apart. None of the photos were particularly revealing, but they didn't need to be. Bezos knew exactly how the world would interpret them. In his inner circle, the mood changed instantly. This was no longer a casual gossip. This was a deliberate release. Someone had timed it, staged it, and directed it to the people who would be most hurt. And once Bezos saw it, the chances of the photos becoming public increased exponentially. Within hours, they were on the radar of editors in New York and Los Angeles. The next morning, they had not only gone viral, they had sold for a fortune. By this time, Bezos's Bish marriage had come to light. It was no longer private. It was a story. When the final batch of images hit mainstream media, the effect was immediate. It was no longer a billionaire gossip or a photo exchange via encrypted text messages. It had become a public spectacle. News reports repeated the story for hours on end. Tabloid covers splashed the most incriminating images on their front pages. Gossip pages scrutinized every detail. The tilt of Lauren's head, the shadow behind her, a possible intimate touch. The headlines were deadly. Billionaire's wife and the mystery of a yacht. Lauren Sanchez caught in scandal under the Mediterranean sun. Trouble in paradise. The story almost wrote itself. And the internet, eager, curious, unforgiving, had devoured it overnight. Social media exploded with sarcastic jokes, armchair investigations, and dramatic conspiracy theories. Some claimed the man in the photo was an old friend. Others said it was a business relationship. Some even suspected the whole thing was staged just to embarrass Jeff Bezos. Lauren felt the stark change in public perception. Just a few months ago, she was the stunning, confident woman who could walk into any room and command attention on par with Bezos himself. But now, every public appearance was a different kind of spotlight. A blinding, relentless light eager to hunt for any sign of weakness. Paparazzi swooped outside her door. At events, photographers abandoned other guests only to rush after her on the red carpet. Even at private dinners, Lauren was the center of the inevitable chatter. Her strategy, at least in public, was to keep quiet. No press releases, no interviews, no explanations of any kind. Friends said she was waiting for the storm to pass, but when she fell silent, others filled the void. Former colleagues hinted at her ambition. Unnamed sources described Lauren as easily bored, perpetually insecure. And for every time she denied something behind closed doors, 10 new rumors would spring up online. Jeff Bezos' reaction was the opposite. In public, he seemed unfazed. His social media accounts were still filled with information about his business ventures, his space ambitions, and his philanthropic announcements. He spoke at conferences, attended board meetings with the same calm, precise demeanor. To outsiders, everything looked normal, but those close enough could sense the anger simmering beneath the surface. Behind the scenes, Bezos took action. His inner circle shrank overnight. Security experts were called in, not just to protect, but to investigate. A digital forensics team began combing through encrypted messages, metadata, and GPSATA. The yacht's guest list was reviewed. The crew list was checked. NDAs were quietly, aggressively enforced. Clearly, Bezos wanted to know more than just who had released the photos. But Bezos didn't just want to know who leaked the photos. He wanted to know why. Those who worked with him knew. It wasn't just jealousy. For Bezos, the scandal went beyond personal humiliation. It was a direct attack on the image he had worked so hard to build. And in Bezos' world, image was power. Every conversation, every deal, every partnership, it was built on a foundation of power, control, and absolute precision. A public betrayal, especially one of this scale, could destroy that foundation in a way that money couldn't immediately mend. The cracks in the marriage were now obvious. The couple, who had held hands at dinner parties, who had beamed at charity auctions, now appeared together only when absolutely necessary. And even then, the air between them was thinly veiled. Friends who had once praised their chemistry now spoke of awkward silences, hasty conversations, and separate nights in the same city. Lauren's supporters insisted that the photos had been misinterpreted and that the media had turned an innocuous moment into a storm. But the court of public opinion never waited for evidence. The narrative was set. Lauren was the betrayer. Bezos was the one in shock. And as the days passed, the question became less, did she cheat? And more, how will Bezos react? In Bezos' universe, betrayal had consequences far beyond the emotional. Competitors would smell distraction. Investors would doubt their ability to focus. Competitors in business and politics would see an opportunity to strike. What started on the deck of a ship far from Wall Street has now spilled into the boardroom and affected stock prices. It's no longer about marriage. It's about control. Who has it? Who has lost it? And who will get it back after all? For Jeff Bezos, who built his empire by outhinking, and outmaneuvering everyone, letting someone else take control of the story is unacceptable. The world watched, holding its breath, waiting for Jeff Bezos' next move. Would it be a quiet divorce, a carefully calculated announcement, or a move more dramatic than anyone had expected? Over the next several weeks, the public scrutinized every detail. A change in Lauren's style, a wedding ring missing from her finger, a social media post too cleverly written to be random. But if Bezos had made a decision, he didn't say anything. Silence became his most powerful weapon. It kept everyone guessing, left the media with nothing concrete to latch onto, and gave him control over the only thing left. The next chapter of the story. Whispers from within suggest